Jackson leaned back in his chair, staring at the empty cup of coffee in front of him, though he hadn't really been drinking. The room felt unusually quiet, but his mind was anything but. The events of the previous day, the intensity of Hailey's first nervous confession, and the honest, unguarded look in her eyes kept replaying in his thoughts, like a film he couldn't pause. He felt a sharp sting of shame. For suggesting that she come to him, for putting her in that vulnerable position, even if it had been meant professionally, meant to help her. His chest tightened with regret. He had crossed an invisible line in his mind, one that he hadn't realized he even held until now. And yet, alongside the guilt, a determination burned brighter than any hesitation he'd ever known. Jackson realized something crucial: he couldn't let this go. Not her, not this connection. The way she trusted him, the way she had leaned on him, however briefly, made it impossible to ignore the pull he felt toward her. But determination alone wasn't enough. Jackson's life had been full of fleeting attractions, momentary flings, and decisions made without thinking of consequences. This time, it had to be different. This time, he decided, it had to be genuine. No charm, no manipulation, no ego, just honesty. He clenched his fists lightly, feeling the weight of his resolve. He had to tell her the truth. Not the version of himself that everyone expected, a flirt, a playboy, a man who toyed with feelings, but the real version. The one who had been shaken by her presence, captivated by her nervous determination, and genuinely drawn to her in a way he had never experienced before. The thought of confessing terrified him. Jackson was aware of the stakes. She was younger, new to the industry, and vulnerable in ways he hadn't encountered before. But avoiding the truth, pretending nothing had shifted, would be far worse. He didn't want regret to gnaw at him the way shame had gnawed at him tonight. A deep breath steadied him. He replayed her words in his mind, her shyness, her honesty, the trembling vulnerability when she admitted she had never kissed anyone. How could he not honor that trust? How could he not step into this with the respect it demanded? He visualized the moment he would speak to her, the words, the tone, the care with which he would choose each one. "Hailey," he imagined saying, "I have something to tell you. And you should know, it's the truth, all of it." A small, rare smile tugged at his lips. The shame he had felt a moment ago had shifted. Determination, honesty, and hope replaced it. He didn't know exactly how she would respond. He didn't know if she would trust him, or if she would step back. But he knew this: he owed her the real Jackson. For the first time in a long while, he didn't want to charm, didn't want to persuade, didn't want to impress. He simply wanted to be genuine. Because that was the only way he could truly be with her, without guilt, without pretense, and without regret. Jackson leaned forward, elbows on the table, and whispered to himself, almost as if it would steel his nerves, "I'm not letting this go. Not now. Not ever. And I'll do it right." And with that, the man who had been known for fleeting romances, for charm and recklessness, resolved that this time, he would be different. He would be honest, he would be patient, and he would follow the truth, no matter where it led. Hailey sat on the edge of the couch, script still in her lap, her hands twisting nervously. She had expected Jackson to be calm, composed, professional, but today, there was a different weight to the air, a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken. Jackson took a deep breath and stepped closer, stopping a few feet away. His eyes, usually so controlled, now held a hint of something raw: vulnerability, concern, and an unmistakable sincerity. "Hailey," he began softly, "there's something I need to tell you." She tilted her head slightly, sensing the seriousness in his voice. "What is it?" she asked, her own voice hesitant, almost trembling. Jackson ran a hand through his hair, a subtle gesture she had never seen from him. "About the suggestion, the idea for you to come here and read the scene, it wasn't just something your manager came up with." Hailey blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" He took another step closer, carefully closing the distance without making her uncomfortable. "I spoke to your manager," he said slowly, choosing each word. "And I told her about the scene, about how nervous you might feel. I suggested it." Hailey froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Jackson's voice softened, earnest and steady. I did it because I wanted to help. And because I wanted to be honest with you. Her heart skipped a beat. She had expected him to act, to guide, maybe even to reassure, but she hadn't expected him to take responsibility, to own the suggestion completely. I know this is unusual, he continued, and I understand if it feels strange. But I didn't want you to think this came from anyone else, this was my idea. And I want you to know, I suggested it because I trust you, and I want to be there for you in this, however you need me. Hailey felt her chest tighten. The room seemed smaller, warmer, charged with the intensity of his words. She had seen Jackson as confident, untouchable, almost untethered from the world, but here he was, showing her a side she had never imagined. Her voice barely above a whisper, she asked, why would you do this for me? Jackson's gaze softened. Because I see you, Hailey. Not just the actress, not just the character, you. And I want to do this right. No shortcuts. No pretenses. Just honesty. For the first time since she had started reading the intimate scenes, Hailey felt her nerves settle slightly. She didn't fully understand the depth of what she was feeling yet, but she realized that she could trust him. Not just in acting, not just in rehearsal, but in this small, fragile moment of vulnerability. Jackson stepped back just enough to give her space, his expression calm but alive with unspoken emotion. I wanted you to know the truth, he said quietly. And I hope you can trust me. Hailey nodded slowly, her eyes meeting his. Something had shifted. The room, the script, the nervous energy, it all felt different now. For the first time, Jackson's suggestion no longer felt like just an idea. It felt like a beginning. Hailey's heart raced as she stepped back from Jackson. His words, his sincerity, and the revelation that he had suggested the whole idea himself overwhelmed her. She couldn't process it, not yet. I need some air, she murmured, more to herself than to him. Without waiting for a response, she turned and hurried toward the door. Jackson's eyes widened in alarm. Hailey, wait, he called softly, but she didn't look back. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the hallway as she left the house, her mind spinning. He followed her at a safe distance, not wanting to crowd her, but making sure she was okay. Through the streets, past quiet corners and familiar shops, he kept her in sight until she reached the safety of her own apartment. Only when he saw her step inside did he allow himself to stop, leaning against the wall with a heavy sigh. Inside, Hailey leaned against the door, her breathing uneven. She felt shaken, conflicted, and unsure of what to think. Jackson's honesty had touched her, but it had also stirred emotions she wasn't ready to settle with yet. Her mind replayed his words over and over, mixing gratitude, confusion, and lingering doubt. Days passed. Hailey avoided thinking about the encounter at first, afraid of what she might feel. She focused on her work, the script, and the long hours on set. But Jackson's sincerity lingered in her thoughts, quietly, insistently. Each time she remembered his calm, honest expression, the way he had taken responsibility, and the careful respect he showed her, her initial shock began to soften. She reflected on the trust he had shown, the courage it must have taken to be so upfront with her. Slowly, admiration began to seep in, mixed with gratitude. It wasn't immediate. It wasn't sudden. But over time, Hailey realized something important: Jackson had been genuine. He had not manipulated her, he had not pressured her. He had only offered honesty and care, and for that, she felt something shift within her. Finally, after days of thought, she took a deep breath and allowed herself to feel it fully. She felt grateful for his honesty, for his openness, and for the way he had respected her boundaries. A quiet smile formed on her lips. She whispered to herself, "Thank you, Jackson. I forgive you." And with that, the tension that had weighed so heavily on her chest began to ease, replaced by a fragile, tentative sense of trust, and the possibility of something more. The next day, the unexpected announcement hit: due to a sudden change in the shooting schedule, Hailey and Jackson would have to share the same trailer. Hailey froze for a moment, her hands gripping her bag tightly. Her mind raced. How would she handle being in such close proximity to him again, after everything that had happened? Jackson, on the other hand, felt a quiet thrill. Seeing her again, knowing they would share this small space, made his heart race. A rare smile tugged at his lips as he anticipated their interaction, even if he had to hide the nervous excitement fluttering inside him. When Hailey stepped into the trailer, her first instinct was to turn and leave. The air felt heavy, filled with unspoken words and lingering tension. She could feel the awkwardness pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. Jackson noticed immediately. He stood up swiftly, his hand reaching for hers before she could retreat. "Hailey," he said softly but firmly, "please don't leave. Let's just talk." Hailey hesitated, caught between the urge to flee and the unspoken trust she still felt. Something in his tone, calm, sincere, and vulnerable, made her pause. Slowly, she allowed him to guide her to a seat across from him, her fingers still tingling from his touch. Jackson took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on her. I'm sorry, Hailey," he began, his voice quiet but earnest. "For everything. For putting you in that position. For any discomfort I caused. I never meant to hurt you." Hailey stayed silent, her eyes dropping to her lap. She didn't know what to say. The words lingered, heavy and emotional, but her heart felt the weight of his sincerity. Jackson leaned forward slightly, careful not to overwhelm her. "I know I can't just expect forgiveness," he admitted. "But, will you ever forgive me?" She didn't answer, and the silence stretched. Jackson's chest tightened, but he didn't give up. He repeated his apology, softer this time, almost a whisper. "I'm truly sorry, Hailey. I never wanted to make you feel this way." Hailey's fingers twisted nervously in her lap, but something in her chest softened. She could see how much he meant it, how much he wanted her to trust him again. The repeated apologies weren't just words, they were a promise, a reflection of the respect and care he now felt for her. Jackson stayed there, quietly, patiently, giving her the space she needed while showing his willingness to make things right. Slowly, the tension in Hailey's chest began to ease, replaced by a hesitant sense of trust. She wasn't ready to speak yet, but she was listening. And for Jackson, that small opening felt like a victory, a chance to rebuild what had been shaken. Hailey sat quietly in the trailer, still nervous but calmer than before. The tension of yesterday lingered, yet Jackson's steady gaze and sincere presence made her feel a little safer. I don't know what to say," she admitted softly. "I was shocked yesterday, and I didn't expect you to be honest." Jackson's chest tightened at her words. He leaned back slightly, giving her space but never breaking eye contact. "Hailey, I meant every word. I never wanted to make you feel uncomfortable. I wanted you to know the truth." Her lips pressed into a thin line as she considered his sincerity. Jackson's charm and confidence on screen had always made him seem untouchable, but now, in this quiet moment, he felt genuine, vulnerable, real. I think I understand now," she murmured, her voice soft. "And I'm grateful for your honesty." Jackson's lips curved into a small, relieved smile. He reached out gently to brush a strand of hair from her face, a tender, fleeting gesture full of warmth. "You're welcome," he whispered. "I just want you to feel safe, and move forward at your pace." Hailey nodded slowly, allowing herself a small, tentative smile. Trust had begun to return. The trailer was quiet, charged with unspoken emotion, a delicate thread forming between them. Jackson felt a rush of happiness, his heart swelling with gratitude. He couldn't believe how lucky he was to have her trust, even in small measures. Overcome with emotion, he leaned forward, gently holding Hailey's face in his hands. Her eyes met his, wide and nervous, yet attentive. "I'm so in love with you, girl," he whispered, his voice thick with feeling. "I'm so crazy for you. I'll do everything to make you mine." Hailey's breath caught, her heart hammering as she stared into his eyes, feeling the intensity of his words, the sincerity behind them, and the promise of something real, something unforgettable. Hailey's cheeks flushed a deep pink as she met Jackson's gaze. Her heart pounded in her chest, a wild rhythm she couldn't control. For a moment, words seemed impossible, but the warmth in her chest pushed her forward. I'm no match for you, she admitted softly, her voice barely above a whisper. The corners of her lips curled into a shy, hesitant smile. Jackson tilted his head, curious. Why would you say that? He asked gently, keeping his voice calm, patient, and full of interest. Hailey fidgeted with her fingers, glancing down at the floor before meeting his eyes again. I've never dated anyone before. I don't have any experience. I'm scared. Her words trembled slightly, full of honesty and vulnerability. Jackson's chest tightened at her confession, and a quiet smile tugged at his lips. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. I don't care about that, he said softly, with unwavering confidence. Let me teach you everything. I'll be your first and your last. I'll never let you go. Her heart skipped a beat. A flutter of warmth spread through her chest, a mix of nervous excitement and a budding confidence she hadn't felt before. She met his eyes, searching for sincerity, and found it there, shining clearly and honestly. Are you sure? She asked, still shy but with a hint of boldness creeping in. Jackson's gaze softened, a calm determination in his eyes. More than you'll ever know, he said, and in that moment, Hailey felt a surge of trust and certainty she had never allowed herself before. She smiled, a shy, radiant curve that lit up her whole face. Her eyes lingered on his, sparkling with a mixture of admiration, excitement, and something new, something deeper. And as she smiled, Jackson felt it too. For the first time, he saw it clearly, she was falling for him, just as he had fallen for her. A charged silence settled over the trailer, heavy and electric. Jackson slowly reached out, letting his hand brush gently against hers before pulling her a little closer. Their faces drew near, breaths mingling, hearts racing in unison. He leaned in, intent on closing the distance, the world outside the trailer fading completely. Hailey's breath caught, and a wave of shyness washed over her. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, her fingers gripping his shirt lightly as her heart hammered with anticipation. Just as the space between their lips narrowed and the moment hung suspended in time, a sudden, sharp knock echoed through the trailer door. Both of them jumped slightly, breaking the tension instantly. Their eyes widened, and reality rushed back into the room. Jackson pulled back slightly, a mixture of frustration and amusement flickering across his face, while Hailey's cheeks burned even brighter, her shy smile returning. The intimate moment was paused, suspended in time, leaving both of them acutely aware of the feelings that had just begun to surface, and the inevitable consequences of someone interrupting them. The knock lingered, echoing in the small space, and both Hailey and Jackson exchanged a glance, a silent acknowledgement that this was only the beginning of something dangerous, thrilling, and undeniably real.